I'm going to be speaking to you today about a topic very dear to my heart, and it's called using your privilege for power in the world of technology. Why am I speaking to you about this today? Well, we know that the world of tech is traditionally homogenous, lacks representation of underrepresented communities. So as specialist recruiters, it's our privilege as recruiters to make change within the industry. And the first step of doing that is educating our candidates and our clients about inclusive recruitment strategies that can make change. So to introduce myself, I am Gray-Upton. I'm the L&D manager at Signify. What does that mean? So I am in charge of all things training, from people who come in for the very first day all the way through to leadership. But on top of that, I'm in charge of DE&I, which stands for diversity, equity and inclusion. So I'm upskilling all of our recruitment consultants on how to have really good conversations with our candidates, create lots of psychological safety, but a big part of my job is going out to clients and working with them to create inclusive hiring strategies. So for you to really understand why I'm passionate about D&I, I'm going to tell you a little bit of a story about myself. Back when I was in primary school, I spent 95% of my time outside of the classroom. I'd have a teaching assistant helping me to read, write and spell. And that continued all through primary school till I got to secondary school and there were no budgets for teaching assistants. So instead, I was thrown into the bottom set of every single class and forgotten about. I was branded as lazy, someone who didn't study or work hard enough, even though I say I did. My mother probably wouldn't tell you that though. So when it got through to doing GCSEs, I scraped by, and it was the decision between doing my GCSEs, so doing my A-levels, or going to do a BTEC. And I remember a teacher coming to me and saying, don't do A-levels. You're not clever enough for that. Go and do the BTEC. So from a very young age, branded as lazy, branded as someone that didn't try hard enough, I always aimed for the low-hanging fruit. I always aimed for the low, easy option. Passed my BTEC, and I managed to go to university through clearing. Anyone been to university and has failed a few modules, like me, no shock there, you'll know that when you do your retakes, pass mark drops to 30%. Wicked, that's all I need, bare minimum, 30%, that's what I'm aiming for. Smashed it, got my 30%. So I scraped through to my second year, failing again, and a lecturer approaches me. Says, Chloe, she looks me in the eyes. Have you ever thought about doing a dyslexia test? And I went, light bulb, oh my God. So privilege is a key word here because I could afford to go private to get a diagnosis, and it changed my life because no longer am I the lazy person that's putting in minimal effort. I actually have a learning disability. So I thought this information was going to change my life, and sadly it didn't. I was doing a 4-year university course. The third year of my course, I had to go and do a year of industry work experience. I wanted to get a job in HR. I didn't want to be a software developer, as technical as you. I didn't want to be a rocket scientist. But in order for me to get this job in these big companies, I had to go through a series of psychometric testing. For those of you that don't know what psychometric testing is, it's verbal reasoning, numerical reasoning, personality tests, and logic, etc. I'd go through the first stage of the interview, smash it. I'd do the psychometric testing and epically fail it. So I had HR professionals and leaders tell me, Chloe, if it was based on your personality, you would have got the job. But you aren't smart enough to have this job here. And I said, wait a minute, I've got dyslexia. Doesn't mean I can't do the job, it just means I think in a different way. And they said, Chloe, we understand. We need people that can pass the psychometric testing. You're not good enough. This was a long time ago. People didn't understand what reasonable workplace adjustments were. I didn't understand how to communicate what I needed from them. So again, I've got my diagnosis, but my dream's still shattered because even though I've got my diagnosis, it's not good enough. So I finished university and I was a pretty broken woman, to be honest with you. And instead of going for a HR role, I went for the low-hanging fruit. HR, learning and development. I wouldn't change it and I wouldn't go back, but I opted for the easy option. I fell into a career in advertising, doing learning and development, where I met a manager who was dyslexic. And I thought, how can that be? This person's charismatic and amazing and communicates about being neurodivergent and is paving the way for other people. So I grew my confidence. And that's where I spent 3.5 years there, and I was interviewing for my next job. I was interviewing at Signify and a banking firm. The banking firm, guess what? Chloe, here's a set of psychometric tests. I said, I can't do these tests. I'm dyslexic. I will fail. They said, Chloe, it's company policy for you to do these tests, but we promise we won't take the information and discriminate against you. So I said, okay, you won't take the information and discriminate, but you're still making me do it. I burst into tears because the trauma of everything I'd been through had come back. And I did the tests, and I also got the job, but unfortunately for them, I was also interviewing at Signify, and I was introduced to this man here, Ryan Adams, our CEO. Black minority business owner, grew up in South Croydon and is now living in LA, living it up. But he understood what it was like to be discriminated against. So when I told him I'm dyslexic, he said, wow, tell me about that. How does that impact you? How can I create an environment for you to thrive? And my eyes just lit up and I thought, this is the way interviews should be. So Ryan knows what it's like to be discriminated against. When he was coming up through the ranks in recruitment, he'd look from the left and he'd look to the right. Huge lack of representation of people of colour, women, working parents, the list goes on. So when he built Signify in 2016, he said, I want to build a company with a difference. Signify is naturally diverse. The people we work with actually understand what it's like to be discriminated against, which is why we are the perfect people to put our candidates first, because we understand what it's like going through interview processes. We are the people that will speak to our clients thoroughly to ensure that they're doing things the right way, where possible, so our candidates can thrive. And that's why I'm speaking to you about how you can use your privilege for power today. Our mission at Signify is to empower every person, regardless of their background or circumstances, with an equitable chance to achieve the careers they deserve, building a diverse future one step at a time. Our vision is to be recognised as the world's most diverse staffing partner in the technology industry, positively celebrated for the transformative influence that we bring to the lives and the communities we serve. And that's why we're speaking to you today about how you can use your privilege for power in the world of tech, because you are all the future. You're all people working within software development or software engineering roles. You are either candidates here to network, or you're going to be hiring managers who actively have influence over the interview process. So if there's one thing I can get you to leave here today thinking, some tips and tricks about how you can remove barriers for people going through your interview process to make it equitable and fair. Why is D&I such a big topic? Well, because there's so much discrimination going on in the workplace. Unfortunately, 50% of UK adults have experienced or witnessed race, age, or gender or LGBTQ discrimination at work. 50% of adults. 50% of managers feel uncomfortable hiring neurodivergent employees. So that's 50% of employers out there won't hire somewhere like me. Black, Asian and ethnic candidates send 60% more applications than their white counterparts. 1 in 5 LGBTQ+ candidates are discriminated against in the recruitment process because of their gender identity or sexual orientation. The motherhood penalty, 7% pay gap between mothers and non-mothers, and a whopping 21% pay gap between women and childless men. 70% of UK candidates say age discrimination is common in their workplace. I've seen it. 3 out of 4 UK companies are still paying men more than women. Just 1 in 3 Black, Asian and minority ethnic candidates feel recruitment agencies will treat them fairly. That's why Signify is on a mission to change the industry so everyone can trust us as a recruitment firm. 1 in 3 employers are less likely to hire a transgender candidate. 390,000 new mothers each year experience pregnancy or maternity discrimination at work. 1 in 3 candidates have experienced or witnessed racism at work. 1 in 5 employers are less likely to hire a candidate with a disability. That is why it's so important we take action, all of us in the roles we're in, to make change today. But what about tech? 93% of software developers are men. That's globally, that's that. It's important to realise that that's globally. Globally, 5% of software developers in the world identify as women, and another 2% identify as non-binary or genderqueer, globally. In the UK, this isn't focusing just on software development, this is all tech roles. 25% of tech workers belong to ethnic minority groups. That's 16% reportedly identify as Asian, whilst 4% identified as Black. 25% is actually an increase from previous years, and it's looking like good representation, but if we look at that stat, we're seeing we're not doing enough. In the UK, ethnic diversity halves from 25% to 13% at senior roles. So companies aren't doing enough training, succession planning, or progression to see representation at the top. Why does this matter though? Diversity is good for business, that is just fact. 73% more revenue from innovation if a leadership team is diverse. Companies with diverse workers are 36% more profitable. You want to make more money? Diversify your teams, it's that simple. 41% more revenue is generated by teams with gender equality. 70% increase in employee commitment in organisations with diversity, equity and inclusion programmes. Hiring managers in the room, sit up and listen, this one's important. 82% of candidates would reject a job offer if your company didn't support diversity. 85% of female millennials, always struggled with that word, look for the diversity credentials of an employer before applying. So if you are looking for more female talent and you aren't posting about what you're doing, you're probably losing that talent pool. 1 in 3 candidates won't apply if your company lacks representation. 70% of candidates expect transparency around workforce and diversity and inclusion. So that is why it's important. And this is where my dyslexia and my memory loss requires cards, because I'm going to talk to you about some stats. Inclusive hiring truly benefits all. It's good recruitment. 15% of the UK population is neurodiverse. So neurodiverse is conditions like dyslexia, dyspraxia, autism, ADHD, bipolar. There's a few other things I've definitely missed there, but just to give you a general overview. 15% of the population, that equates to 10 million people, are going to be going through job interviews in the future, which is why we make our processes inclusive. How can you remove barriers from neurodivergent employees? Well, you can ask for accessibility adjustments multiple times throughout the process. We were once working with a candidate who was a graduate looking for their first job in software development. And again, flew through the first stage, but in the second stage had a tech test. And he had dyslexia, but he was so terrified about disclosing it that he didn't, and he failed. But actually that employer never asked him if he had anything to disclose. So if maybe he was asked 3 times, he may have come forward. Now, I'm not saying that that candidate would have smashed the test and had the right skills to be put forward, but we would have given him a fair shot and equal playing field. Those with autism, they might want to be able to prepare and see questions beforehand. So many people say, Chloe, but what if they prepare and that's an unfair advantage for other people? No, it's not. Everyone prepares for an interview beforehand anyway. Simply letting someone see the questions is fine. Because if you ask someone with autism a direct question, you're going to get a direct answer 9 times out of 10, so let them prepare. For those that English isn't their first language, might need subtitles on Zoom to help translate. In the UK right now, there's a total of 330,000 software developers that identify as female. Right now, there's a 14.9% gender pay gap. Do you know what that means? That women right now are working on average free for 2 months compared to male counterparts, but free for 8 weeks. What can you do to remove the barriers for women when interviewing? Well, first of all, don't ask them about their current salary. That's one of the biggest reasons for gender pay gap, because you're judging them based on what they were paid previously versus what they deserve in the current benchmark. Secondly, if you want to attract women into your company, talk about what inclusive policies you've got right now. Do you have maternity? Do you have flexible working? Do you have training? Like, how are you going to make that person feel included when you lack representation? It's all very well bringing a female into the business, but what are you going to do to support them once they're there? 41% of UK software developers have a university degree. So if you are advertising saying, I want someone with this degree, you're wiping out just under half of your talent pool. Is a degree really that important? Working parents, they face high childcare costs and caring responsibilities, which means they might not be as available as other candidates through the process. Are you offering flexi interview hours? If you want to attract working parents, offer things like parental-friendly interview slots. Said that, thank you. Or consider child benefits or different inclusion policies that are going to attract them to apply for your business. Members from the LGBTQ plus community can often struggle going through the interview process because of discrimination fears, etc. So talk about employee action groups that you've got that actually, if you don't have representation, that's fine. But if you've got a group of people talking about how inclusive you are, that's going to attract people to come forward. There we go. Moving on. Almost there, everyone. There's a big myth that inclusive hiring means compromising on skill. It's not true. Inclusive hiring simply means removing barriers for all people and making it equitable and giving people the fair opportunity. There's a thing that we have called, remember, not all diversity is visible. So usually people say, I want a female because you can see it. I want a person of colour. Well, actually, diversity is so much more than that. There's visible and non-visible disabilities, working parents, people from low social economical backgrounds. All of you sat here are diverse because you've all got your own unique story to tell. It's so much more than optics. I need all of you to remember that when you're hiring. Another thing I need you to remember is positive action versus positive discrimination. Positive action is encouraging people from underrepresented communities to apply for your jobs. How do you do that? Shout about your inclusive policies on LinkedIn and in your job adverts. Have representation on your interview panels. But what we don't want to see from you is positive discrimination. That is you hiring someone based on a protected characteristic. So I'm neurodivergent. If Signify employed me because I look good for their stats, that is against the law. You have to focus on skill. That is so important. You focus on skill only. So to leave you, I'm going to talk to you about how you can leave this presentation today and make a difference in the companies that you're working for. Make every stage of your interview process accessible. You don't know how to do that? Come speak to Signify. Replace culture fit with culture add. I was having a lovely conversation with you about this earlier. Sorry, Chloe, this person doesn't fit into the culture. Okay, well, do you want someone to fit in or do you want someone to add? Stop judging people always solely on personality, but do they have the skill for the job? Don't focus on hiring one identity marker. So many clients come to us saying, we want females. I'm like, but what about everyone? Avoid asking candidates what previous salary they were on. Biggest form of bias. You're going to judge someone based on what they're on and what you think they deserve versus what they deserve. What is your employee value proposition? So I'm sure you all work for some fabulous companies. What are they doing about diversity? If you're hiring someone, shout about what you're doing because that will increase applications from underrepresented communities. Create employee action groups. These are employee-led communities that focus on inclusion. It can range from absolutely anything, working parents, LGBTQ+, neurodiversity, anything. Create inclusive policies and do training around them. And lastly, focus on skill only. So hopefully I've inspired you all to start using your privilege for power, your privilege for power in the world of tech. And remember, if you need any support with inclusive policies, inclusive hiring, what that looks like, come and speak to Signify. Thank you very much.